We all know that this past year has been one of unprecedented challenges. Global temperatures continue to climb, droughts are more severe, food sources are depleting rapidly, and to top it off, we have a new administration in this country who has moved into the White House with the intent on reversing decades of progress. Undaunted and guided by the proven business case for sustainability, Ceres has not only survived, but has flourished and grown in unprecedented ways during these troubling times. But none of this growth, none of this progress would have been possible without our visionary and inspirational leader, Mindy Lubber. Mindy has been Ceres CEO since 2003. She is recognized as a thought leader in the United States and around the globe, and has received numerous awards for her leadership in helping to build a sustainable future for people and for our planet. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming a woman whom I am honored to call a dear friend and a mentor and a brave leader, Mindy Lubber, for her World Ceres Talk.
I wonder what would happen if you say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly.
Welcome. It's great. It's always great to have you back here. Welcome to the Ceres Conference and to spend some time together. Today, I do want to talk about that song, Brave. Sarah Bareilles' words make sense. I want to see all of us be brave and audacious. At last year's conference, we focused on the fact that the transition to a sustainable economy was well underway and marching forward despite shifting political winds. That's still true. Hard to say, though, it hasn't been tougher. The political shift has made it a bit more difficult. But what that means is the private sector leadership, you in this room, are more important than ever in the effort to tackle the world's biggest sustainability challenges. More important than ever. We need braver leaders and bolder solutions to pass on a sustainable economy and a healthy environment to our children. We must scale up. You'll hear that a lot this week. The impacts around our rapidly changing climate are profound and they're devastating. The droughts from Texas to California and all the way to Cape Town are requiring extreme conservation efforts to avoid a day when they will literally run out of water. And the ongoing human rights abuses in our global supply chains are unfathomable, outrageous, and simply unacceptable. But you all know that. You also know we can do something about it, every one of us. We must do something about it. Each of you in this room, everyone sitting at the tables, has the ability to scale up. Understand your power, it's substantial. Set audacious goals and find a way to move your institutions with you. You can do it, we can do it. We need to not only think big, but we need to think different. We need transformational change, not transitional. And we need disruptive change and not incremental. When we say scale up, we mean fundamentally reinventing the role of the corporation and of our capital markets to meet the challenges of today and those of tomorrow. We mean valuing our companies in the long term and not just the short term. We mean getting to a world sooner rather than later where all vehicles are electric. We mean a world where we are producing smartphones without mining the earth or depleting the planet's natural resources, where we're investing $1 trillion in renewable energy every year, and fossil fuels are a thing of the past. We mean a world where we all, every one of us, have access to clean water and sufficient energy, and where children are no longer laboring in the fields and the factories. That's the kind of transformation that will protect our planet and our children for generations to come. And it's what your consumers are starting to expect of you, what your employees expect, and what your shareholders expect. And it's what the world requires of all of us. And that call for a new corporate ethic is growing every day, not only from NGOs. Think about it. BlackRock's CEO Larry Fink recently said, without a sense of purpose, companies will provide subpar returns to their investors who depend on it. He's right, that makes sense. And David Blood, an absolute thought leader, a pioneer in sustainable investing, who you have the privilege of hearing from shortly, reminds us that the choice between what is good for your business and what is good for the world is a false choice. He says, if you do it the right way, you don't have to trade values for value. David, you're a smart guy. Without a sustainable economy, there is no business. Without clean air or clean water, there is no commerce. Without protections for human rights, there is no humanity. We have a new report at Ceres Turning Point, where we looked at the progress of 600 US companies against key sustainability expectations, and it's showing some positive trends. Nearly 2/3 of the companies have committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Found that the Ceres Company Network members, not surprisingly, a little plug, are more than twice as likely to set robust targets. And the nation's largest banks, household names, Bank of America, Citi, Goldman, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, have committed upwards of $850 billion collectively towards a clean energy future. And more than half of the companies we studied now have commitments to manage their resources, water resources in particular. Coca-Cola, as an example, is saying it will replenish 100% of the water used in their beverages. And for the first time, nearly half of these companies have policies to protect the rights of workers. Not enough, but a start. And companies are not just making changes within their operations or within their supply chains. They are weighing in on public policy where and when it matters most. More than 2,700 of you, including 1,800 investors and companies, raised your voices and stood with us to say, we are still in on the Paris Agreement. Thank you. These signatories, representing more than $6.2 trillion of the American economy, spanning all 50 states, red, blue, and everything in between. And polling is showing us that the majority of Americans are still in too. We've got a movement. We are part of it. We can make it happen. And now, so many of those are saying, we are still in, and we're taking action now. This new campaign will drive a new wave of more ambitious climate action. To kick it off, Lyft, the rideshare company, just announced they'd offset all of their carbon emissions from every ride they do globally. Private sector leaders are also standing up for policies at the state level. In Ohio, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, investors and companies helped us push forward policies supporting renewable energy standards and clean transportation. In California, we worked with many of you, so many of you in this room, to extend the cap and trade program and to establish a framework for water conservation and efficiency. And right here in the Northeast, you stood up for a stronger, groundbreaking, market-based program known as RGGI. I can tell you from experience, years in politics, years in government, and hundreds of meetings, sitting in congressional meetings and meetings with governors and state house meetings, it is your voices, private sector voices, that are making a difference on policy. They are listening, they are hearing. And investors around the world are speaking up and scaling their ambitions as well. Today, I'm happy to announce 280 global investors, representing nearly $30 trillion in assets under management, have signed on to the Climate Action 100, and that number is growing every day. It includes the largest US institutional investors and pension funds from California to New York and from Europe to Asia. And they are engaging, those investors are engaging with the world's largest corporate greenhouse gas emitters and calling on them to improve their governance, reduce emissions, and strengthen disclosures. And we're already seeing results. Here in North America, American Electric Power and Procter & Gamble just announced targets for substantially, significantly lowering their greenhouse gas emissions. And beyond climate, which includes so many things, the concept of water risk is finally going mainstream among investors and companies as well. At Ceres, we've developed tools to give investors the information they need to make smarter decisions and to push companies to do better. After receiving a low score on one of our benchmarking reports, no, we don't name and shame, they are academic, but our Feeding Ourselves Thirsty benchmarking report, Tyson Foods announced they would improve water, soil, and fertilizer practices on 2 million acres of their suppliers' lands. It amounts to the largest commitment ever to sustainable grain production by any US meat company. But here's the hard truth. None of this, great examples, and we've got hundreds, and so many of you have done great things. None of it is yet enough. On the path we're on, the US will not meet our goals for the Paris Agreement. And we will not prevent our cities and states from drying up or having water shortages. We will not pass on a safe and equitable economy to our children, and we must. Look, it is time for us to stand up, to run, to not walk into the future. It is no longer enough to make commitments that are not time-bound. It is no longer enough to have a CSO, a corporate sustainability officer. We need boards to drive sustainability and their CEOs to have their compensation tied to it. And it is never okay to say one thing in public and have a trade association advocate for the exact opposite. I know that none of this is easy. It's easy to stand up and make a speech. It is not easy, but the stakes are so high, they are too high for us to shy away from now. We either change the world or we don't. If you need inspiration, let's take it from the young people who we've heard from over the past few months. They are standing up and being brave, and they are demanding change. They'll remember what we do and what we don't do. They will act on the information that they get, and they will choose where to live and where to work, where to spend their money and for whom to vote. Let us listen to them. Let us be brave. Let us be bold. Let us be better. Let us together scale up. I've got great confidence that with every one of you in this room, there's so much more we can do. Do it together, bring people together. We can scale up, we can get there. Thank you, and enjoy the Ceres Conference.